Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Marriage is Tougher Than Woodpecker Lips podcast. This is Brian, joined by my co-host, Paul. We'd like to welcome you to a community meant for the men of the world to share their thoughts and perspectives on marriage. We can learn from each other's experiences and help each other be better husbands. This week on the pod, we want to talk to you about unidentified anxiety. There's a video for you that we're going to play, and after we do that, we'll have a discussion about it.
So before we jump all the way in, I'd just like to say, first-time guests, welcome. If you've been rocking with us for a while, we appreciate it. If you'd like to go deeper on this conversation, or at any time you'd like to share it with someone, don't hesitate to do that. If you'd like to connect with us, please search Marriage is Tougher on all social media platforms, or you can go to marriageisttougher.com. We have a contact form. Just scroll down to the bottom, fill that out, and if you'd like to be a guest, you can do that, or leave us any comments you'd like. Also, you can catch all of our episodes there. So again, if you get any value from this lesson, please subscribe or share with someone. But let's get into the show.
Yeah. So, welcome back, Mr. Nate Williams, a.k.a. Concise the Barber.
How you doing, man?
I hope that our audience is very familiar with this man, as he's been on probably most frequently of any of our guests. But we love to have him on because his perspective on marriage we value very much, and I think he adds a lot of value to the pod when he comes on. But to your question, I'm doing well.
How are you? Good, man. It's good. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, y'all like my perspective. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I don't get that much. I don't get that much, but I appreciate it. I'm just playing with you.
But what's new in your world, man?
Summer. Summer is new. Taking a different angle this year with our child. She didn't want to go to no summer camp, so she's been with us and some friends and family and stuff like that. So just a little interesting take, but we're actually doing a lot better than I thought, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's about to start working, basically, what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
She's about to start working. She's about to start working.
Listen, ain't mad at that, for sure.
Yeah. How old is she now?
14.
14. Oh, yeah. It's ripe age to work.
Yep.
Elbow grease.
Yep. Working papers, all that jazz. Yep.
Yeah. That's what's up. So, Paul, do you want to get right into this video, or do you want to have a little pre-discussion about what we're about to get into?
Let's just
rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah. Well, we'll just set it up as saying it's a take as a husband that I never thought about, but makes a lot of sense. But that's all I'm gonna say about that.
I got you. This is a take as a husband that I needed. I didn't know I needed until you shared it with me. So,
right.
All right, let me cue this up quick. Here we go.
This one piece of information would have changed everything.
For years, I didn't realize what was going on inside of me. You would be asking me questions in the middle of a disagreement or a fight. I start freezing. I don't know why I'm freezing. I don't know that I am freezing. I just know I no longer have access to major parts of my brain and my emotions. And you're like, well, what do you think about this? I'm like, I don't think anything about it. You'd escalate in frustration on your end. I'd escalate in anxiety in my body, but I wasn't aware of any of it. I just was aware of like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I get these answers out to her? I felt very broken. But when the highlight came that this is called freeze, this is what happens when anxiety gets turned up and you get overwhelmed.
Your body shuts down to protect you.
Yep.
It's like your emotions are getting overwhelmed, and your body is like, we can't handle more. So it literally shuts down so that you don't get overwhelmed. I thought you were just coldly neglecting our relationship. So my experience is that you locked down. Instantly, your warmth is gone. Instantly, your connection is gone. Instantly, our camaraderie is gone. So it does feel like a huge threat to me. But for you, you're not purposely doing anything towards me.
If we had known from the get-go what was happening, that would have changed everything about the way that we exchange difficulties.
Okay. So, where that first landed for me was number one, knowing that it was anxiety. knowing that there's a term for it called freeze. And then the last thing he said that really landed for me is the thought that these are the thoughts that are going through my head and I literally just cannot get them out. That pulled my card so hard because there have been so many times where I've been trying to talk to my wife and she's like just striking this nerve and I feel myself starting to shut down, right? And then when I'm there and I am completely shut down, there are all these responses that I have that I know I should say, that I want to say. And I think the more that those responses lean towards how I'm feeling, the less I'm able to get them out.
That's deep.
Very, very. And this is something I'm still currently trying to fight through. And so what I've learned to do is take breaks, and then come back to the conversation. But there's something a little bit deeper. And I think it is when I don't feel heard in the moment, I start to get more and more frustrated and overwhelmed. And so there's a part of me that's like, this conversation is not even worth it at this point. And on top of that, there's also that anxiety piece. But I don't necessarily know what the cause of that anxiety is. Right? Like, because I can understand like there's the situational causation, but then I also feel like there must be some sort of trigger, right, to get from A to Z so quick. I'm gonna let y'all talk on it.
You want to go at that, Paul, first?
I just want to give a little bit when we talk about freeze, kind of what that is when it comes to anxiety, just so we're all on the same page. It's just if we think about what we've heard in our life, it's usually there's fight or flight when you come to a situation. But as I guess in the last couple of years, they've also added freeze to it. When you hit a situation, you're either going to run, you're going to fight, or you're going to be paralyzed. And I never thought about that in a mental space, right? I thought about that in like a survival of the fittest kind of action. But all the freeze responses is you feel like paralysis, either physically, emotionally, or cognitively. So, your emotions freeze, you might freeze physically, or your mind just can't get things out. And I never thought about it like we were saying, it's just in the moment of a conversation. But if you think about preparation, right? And when you practice something, you get more comfortable with it. So it was why you practice, like fire drills or things of that nature. Or if you play a sport, you practice certain situations over and over. So when the moment it happens, your body kind of already knows what to do. Your brain doesn't have to think. In these conversations that we have with our wives, we don't know what's going to happen. And for me, I'd say the past conversations that I've had in other relationships kind of still show up with how different women have reacted. So I kind of still I guess I haven't dealt with that trauma per se for some of those conversations with my wife now, who's never blown up or been unreasonable in a heated argument. But I feel those things. I think my body has kept the score for that long that I have to fight through. This is actually safe. And nothing detrimental is going to happen. And I think that's me kind of I'm still working through that as well. Like every conversation is not going to be, every conversation that I think is uncomfortable is not going to end in a blow up because I don't have that history with her. But I had that history so long previous that it's still in the back of my head. So I guess for me, it's trying to work through the what is and not work through what was before.
Yes, that's good. Man, a lot's been going through my mind just now. Just to be honest, when it comes to this conversation, I will honestly have a different perspective on it because it's more so the opposite. I can probably ask, my wife a question or something, and sometimes I feel like I can't get, much out of her. I'm like, is everything okay? Stuff like that. So she kind of freezes up, when we do get in certain moments, and I kind of think it's kind of interesting. That you started talking about like triggers and stuff like that, because there's no way a blow up just automatically happens from just A to Z.
Right.
So sometimes what it seems like, even though I haven't really experienced it on my end, I think what happens is it sounds like there's some type of security blanket that we keep depositing into of stuff that we don't say much about or we don't communicate, and it just keeps piling up. It could be some type of frustration. It could be something that we said multiple times before, but we're not going to say it again. But it's something that you notice, so you keep putting, you keep depositing it into this one place until you press the right button, and then everything explodes, either through complete freeze or a complete like this outburst. I've noticed that it seems like something. I think a lot's not, even though it's like we have open communication, there still might be some emotions that are still not being said, especially in moments. And so now it's just now being deposited back into something that they, probably would consider a safety blanket. And then, but once that button is hit, it comes out all at once, or you freeze up because you're basically just, your body is kind of like just fed up, and it doesn't know how to respond. You might have so much of an overload in life. You're dealing with so much things, and your spouse or significant others, they need you to be there in the moment, and you don't even know how to be there in the moment. So I think there's some real internal trigger points or internal baggage or whatever you want to call it that's not being spoken of for situations like that to happen.
Yeah. As you were talking, I think that hit me pretty well, because if we use that analogy, right, and we're just kind of putting things away, for me, it's the culmination of the things that in the moment, right, each individual instance, I'm just like, I shouldn't be mad about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to bring this up. Back in the bag, right?
Back in the bag.
And then we're good for a solid week and a half, a month. But across that time is 30 different things. I'm like, I don't need to say anything about that. That's pointless. Bang. Just put that in the bag. And in my mind, I think like I'm throwing that away. No, I'm just storing it up like a squirrel. And then I got this big old backpack on, like, why is my life so heavy right now?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to go through. So I could feel that. The other thing is that I think I just realized is many times with me and my wife, it is her tone that triggers me, right? And her tone sometimes, I don't know if she necessarily realizes how she sounds when she is upset about something and expresses it. But it doesn't make me defensive any longer, but it makes me, I guess, a little angry, because I feel like that tone is motherly. All right. So when I hear that, I'm like, nah, that's not our relationship. You shouldn't be speaking to me like that. And so then I get reactionary, and initially I'm able to still come to the table calm. But if it continues and I feel like my point of view isn't being heard or acknowledged, which I think often happens, then I start to shut down, because then the conversation is not just not going my way. I don't think we're making any progress in the conversation, because in that time I will try to address, okay, here's how you're feeling. Here's what I can offer to try to rectify that. And I feel like I often don't get the same. It's more like if I try to express my feelings, it's met with, yeah, but you, and I'm like, all right, like I don't even want to talk anymore.
Lost me right there.
Yeah, like I'm out.
Mm.
But she wants to continue. And what I'm seeing is it's probably because I haven't offered enough towards resolution for her. But I think that exchange needs to be different. And we talked about it last week. Like the exchange has to be, I hear how you're feeling, acknowledged, right? Here's how I'm feeling. And then the other party also has to acknowledge. And I think that is lacking in our tools at the moment.
You said something kind of interesting when you said you don't feel like you're being heard. Do you feel like that is a part of how she speaks within her tone when you look at that in a motherly way?
It's not the tone that makes me feel like I'm not being heard. The tone is a trigger because when she's upset, right, it takes me back to my mother yelling at me for something.
Right.
And I instantly like, you're my wife, not my mother.
Right.
All right. But if this makes sense, I can kind of separate that. And if we could continue the conversation, and then I also have my perception of whatever the scenario is, or my feelings are at least acknowledged, as in, like, let's say I say to her, hey, I'm upset about this. And it's met with, okay, I understand you're upset about that. Either I'm sorry you feel that way. However that response comes across, at least then I understand that she knows I also have a concern about this situation, rather than, hey, I have a concern about this. And it's met with, but you.
Right, because it's no dig. She's not digging to why you responded that way. And if it seems like it's sometimes, I would say for a good husband, it's a natural thing for us to dig. Like, hey, you're upset. What happened?
We're
How
fixers.
do you want to resolve? Yeah, you try to figure that out. With our wives, sometimes it's an emotional button we're hitting because we're talking about our feelings. So once we talk about our feelings, sometimes they get straight into defense mode because they want to let us know that it's like, but it's not about you. They don't know that they're doing that, but in a big, scheme of things, what they're saying is, but I don't, not to say it so strong, but I mean, I don't know how to, not to say it so strong, but it's like, yeah, you can feel that way, but you did this. So it's not about your feelings in this moment. I just need you to understand my end. And that's what she's kind to like express.
Okay, so
you get what I'm saying?
Let me try to reword what you said. What I heard you say is, it's basically like she brought a concern and I may have some feelings about it, but her intent is to express her concern, have it addressed, and that's where her mind is focused right now. So like, it's almost like the capacity to allow me to respond or express my concerns, maybe even about the same topic in the moment, is not necessarily there.
Not there.
So it sounds like it's something that we've got to work on, then, because I feel like if the roles were reversed, and I bring the concern, right, and my expectation is that needs to be addressed.
Yes,
she's going to want me to hear what she has to say about it, especially if she has a different concern, a similar concern on the same topic or any topic. She's going to want to be heard and acknowledged as well.
Right. And that's not the time to bring up that it's one-sided. That is not the time to bring that up, because once you do, then you just hit another button. I think in a good calm place, a good calm time, playing cards, relax, in a relaxing place, I think that's the best time to address such thing. Like, we just had a conversation. I know you felt this way. You said your piece. I wanted to say my piece, but you didn't seem so concerned. I'm kind of curious why you're not concerned about how I feel about it. Stuff like that. Because if we never get to that place, then she really doesn't understand you fully. But yeah. You have anything, Paul?
I think that was a great explanation of how to address it, not in the moment, because that is a place of openness, right? But in the middle of that conversation, like you said, that can be a train wreck for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting to think about how we have those conversations. I was thinking maybe even like you said, in a different space, maybe even talk about how we want to address things as a couple before we get into that heated place. And maybe even talk about the space where, if I bring a concern, how can we stay focused on the concern, and not talk about something else? Or, what's an acceptable level for each person to share, so that we can get through the actual topic and not be sidetracked by how we feel about certain things that may not even be involved. So it's almost like have a rules of engagement conversation. And then before you bring something up, you can even say, hey, remember, we talked about how we want to engage in these conversations. I want to have one of those conversations right now. And I think that's a way to focus on the issue and not on the emotion or the other person, and their perspective.
Yeah. Another thing that also came to my mind is that, those things that we keep depositing, I think we got to be really, we have to pay attention to that, because sometimes it could be like the most silliest things that we're depositing. You know what I mean? It's like, what? If she talks about this one more time, like, I'm going crazy, but I'm not going to say nothing. Like, I'm going to deposit that. Like, no, but that does not survive in a deposit box. I think honestly that box should never get too heavy.
Yeah.
You're not always going to be perfect and you always express things right in the moment, but don't let too much time go by without, letting them know what's in that box, because it can get heavy.
Yeah. Let me get y'all's perspective on how my mind works around this Dropbox idea, right? So if there is a scenario where I feel upset about something, a lot of times I think to myself, how would I feel about this tomorrow? Right? As in, is this that big of a situation, or is it just like something that I got upset about for a couple minutes, and then give me 15 minutes, it's not going to really matter too much, right? Like those are the types of things for me that go in the Dropbox more times than not. And I think those are the things that typically fade away, until if she brings up the same scenario, right? Then for some reason I go back and retrieve that, like, okay, you're like dogging me for this, but like it's the same. I don't understand why, you know what I mean? So, and that's never really my intent, but I feel like I have maybe it's just a avoidant nature to not bring those things up in the moment when they happen. But my thought always is like, I guess I'm, like I said, avoidant. I don't want to create a situation over something like so small that a half hour from now, I'm not even really going to be thinking about it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So like, what's the point of bringing it up, having this whole thing, and then like if I feel like I don't really even care about it that much, I feel like those are the types of things I want to just drop in the bag, drop in the box.
Man, I think those are the things that help you practice for the big thing, though.
Okay.
As you were talking about, I think if you have no real strong feelings about something, but it still kind of twinges you a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
I think kind of start practicing on those things to have those conversations. Because at the end of the day, you can just, like you said, if it's not that big of a deal, you can just agree to disagree or drop it and like be like, all right, it's fine. But it's those things that have value that are bigger. And if we haven't worked out how to converse in those, that's when I think we freeze because we haven't practiced in a smaller situation.
Mm-hmm.
I got that. I think where my head also is I don't want to come across like I'm always picking at something.
Yeah, that's fair. I think
Mm-hmm.
if you go in saying, hey, I want to work on this, like I don't want to freeze. I don't want like my brain to just cognitively check out. And I don't want to take as many breaks when we have bigger conversations. So I'm going to start mentioning things that don't really mean as much, but I just want to start practicing. And
Okay.
just so you can hear what I'm feeling, you can hear what's going on in my mind. Like if you frame it from a vulnerability perspective, I think, you know, any wife is kind of on board with like, all right, he's going to try to be more vulnerable. He's working on his emotional intelligence. You know, I'm going to be here for that. And you can ask her, hey, is that something you think that we should work on? You know, I'm really trying to grow. And more times than not, she's going to say yes. If she says no, maybe we have some issues that we need to talk about that are bigger than this. But I think as long as you both agree and then you both agree on the rules of engagement in those conversations, and maybe it's even say like, hey, if this gets out of control, I'm just going to say, hey, like, this is not that big of a deal, or whatever phrase that lets her know, like, I'm just trying to practice here. So, um, so that so that it doesn't escalate, you can just drop it quickly, and not now start pulling from random places. And now it's this big snowball. It's just, no, it's just this little thing. I want to practice and then we can be out.
Coining a new term, parachute phrase.
Yeah. There's
I'm out.
there's something that me and my wife, what we started doing, because I brought it up. And sometimes, like you said, you know, right place, right time and all that stuff. When I brought this up, sometimes you can even think that it's like in a safe environment. But like I said, you might need to do this a little bit more research on when you bring this up. So when I brought this conversation up of, let's say we have a few friends over and, you know, we're having a conversation and I'm speaking and she'll just come out of nowhere. For me, it feels like it comes out of nowhere. She'll just start speaking over me. And I wasn't done speaking. We got to a place now, it's like if I do like a tap or, you know, sometimes there's gestures that you can do to let the other one know. It's like, oh, okay, maybe I should scale back. And vice versa. You know, she could be having something going on. I'm a very talkative person and I'll just slide right on over and start having a conversation and she'll give me a look and I know the look. Right. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, let me scale back. You know, so there are certain things that we shouldn't always take so... It shouldn't get into the box, especially if you had conversations about something before, but it's something that needs to be done, and how to go about it is you know, it's multiple different ways. Like we use hand gestures, you know, certain looks. You can even have certain sayings. But I think it needs to be said, even if it's small things, because you don't want it to pile up. But if those small things are something that's like there's certain things like once we get in bed, I do not want to talk about. Like I respectfully, I don't want to talk about. Like we work 18 hours a day. The last thing I'm thinking about is work. I'd rather watch a show that I'm not going to watch in the next 10 minutes because I'll be asleep. But I'd rather just not I'd rather just not always just talk. Like if it's about work, I'm talking about work, But yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, that's good, man. This is gonna be off topic a little bit, but do you, for her sake, set a time aside for her to get those thoughts out?
Set a time for her.
Yeah, like, so you're saying you don't want to be in bed talking about work, right?
Mhm.
So, like, would you, if she tries to start that, do you acknowledge it and then say, "Hey, listen, let's bring this back up at this time tomorrow," or like just set aside a specific time for you to have those conversations? I guess.
No,
Nah.
I haven't. I'm gonna try that.
Okay,
I'm gonna try that today.
I got you.
But no, I haven't done that because honestly, I have an ear. If she wants to talk about something doing like midday, I'm like, all right, what you got?
Yeah.
So like I never really thought about setting that time. It's just like once it's like time to wind down, she knows I tell her like I shut down at like 10 p.m. and I don't think about much because I like to wake, I like to get up early, start my day, get everything. My mind's really active then, but her mind is like at night. It's like she ramps up, and I'm like, well, have at it. You know what I mean? But sometimes it's but I get it. You want to always bounce ideas off your off your spouse and stuff like that. But sometimes it's like, well, once we get to the like if we're down here and it's late, okay, that's different.
Okay.
But once we get to the bedroom, it's like I'm not there.
I
I'm not there. I just don't want you to feel no type of way. I'll let her know.
I got you. So more or less, that's just your no-go zone as far
Yeah,
as
I honestly think there
conversation.
should be.
Yeah.
I think there should be. I mean, it might not be everybody's. The bedroom might not be everybody's, but for me, it's like when it comes to like, I like it. That's just a different setting for me to just chill, relax. We could talk about whatever in a sense on some real, but as long as it doesn't feel like I'm trying to figure out something really heavy right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't sleep well out of the gate. So having a heavy conversation where like I'm gonna be thinking about it for the next hour and then waking up in the middle of the night with whatever dreams I had about it as well. Like,
Yeah.
If I could avoid that, that'd be great.
I think that's a great boundary to have. And it seems like you guys have walked through that and kind of agreed on it. So in that moment, you might not need a time, but if something pops up where she needs to, I think you can, like you said, just try that. Be like, hey, like I know this is real important.
Right.
But let's do that when my brain is ready to do this if we can. Obviously, if it's an emergency situation, you got to talk about it.
Yeah, that's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And I like that because I feel like it's not fair to either party, right? Like if I'm mentally shutting down, whether it's intentional or like I'm just so exhausted that I can't at this point, it's not fair to that person to try to have a deep, in-depth conversation unless it is absolutely necessary, right? Then I'm going to do what I can. However, on the other side, like I'm trying to bring something of importance to you, and it may not necessarily seem fair that you're unwilling to speak on it at this moment, right? But if it, like we said, is addressed and say, hey, I'm not trying to, disregard what you're trying to bring to me at this point, is like I'm just not in the mental space. So can this wait until this time, and then give them a time where we can come back to it? I think
it's about practice, knowing your spouse and respecting your spouse to the point that this is not even something I'm going to bring up just yet.
I got you.
You get what I'm saying? Because there is that thought that I think should happen first. Like if there's a lot that's going on her plate, and I'm like creating this video, and I'm like, babe, can you watch this video real quick for through? I'm not going to do it right then and there because that's a little bit too much. It's out of place, Especially if she gives me the look. Okay, my bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'll scale back, but right time, right place.
Yeah. My thing is the transfer of energy, right? Like how many times is it that they've got something on their mind, and just for the fact that they get to say it to you, it's like, that's yours now. Have fun with that.
Yeah, that could be another part of anxiety that's not being discussed.
Mm.
The transfer of energy. How do you have that conversation?
I think it's more or less just like when you do something like that, or no, that's not the way to do that. I'm going to say, so it's more in the moment. If I bring myself more to the moment, it's like, wow, when you said those words to me, this is how it made me feel. Right? Like, I want you to be okay. I also need you to understand that this is how I'm affected by what just happened. And I think that's something I need to be better about, because I think we said earlier, like maybe this isn't the time within that conversation to bring those things up, but I think sometimes it's warranted for them to understand. Because again, like I told you, like sometimes it is tone for me. And if I don't express, hey, your tone right now is triggering me, then that tone's going to continue.
Yep.
And there will be no progress, guaranteed. Because I'm just going to continue to pull away, continue to shut down. Right. And like that video said, I am maybe doing it unknowingly. And then her perception of it is like, oh, he doesn't care. But that's not the case. Like I care. I want you to be well. I want you to be able to feel like I'm a safe place for you to express your feelings. But I also don't want you to feel like I'm a safe place for you to talk to me out of pocket. Because that can't be a thing.
Yeah.
And if you don't realize you're doing it, then it's my obligation to make you realize
this is what's happening.
Right.
Yeah.
Now I'm sure that the way I said that is probably a little bit harsh, so it needs to come across better. Right.
I'm teetering. I'm teetering. No, and here's why. Out of love, out of respect, some things need to be said, not disrespectful, but kind of like stern, strong.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to understand what strong is. Like, I'm not saying anything to make you feel any way, but this is exactly how I feel. Mm-hmm. Boom. You know, instead of always like, so there's always, you got to find that balance. Like, cause you got to say things in a healthy way, but also it still should be to a place where it's really direct, right? And not like, well, you know, it's not like, and then you try to like take away how it really makes you feel. But no, honestly say how you really feel, you know, because that's like the best, to me, that's the best medicine.
Yeah. And there's a practice piece, like we've said before in some recent episodes, about practicing receiving that. So I think setting that up as well, you know, like Paul said, practicing getting those things across in a calm space. I think having the conversation of, let's practice tone, let's practice delivery of concerns, and practice receipt, right? So how can I best communicate this to you so you receive it in a manner that allows the conversation to continue?
Right.
Right. How do you prefer to be spoken to in any situation, but in areas of contention, how do you need these concerns brought up in a manner where I can be direct and ensure that you understand where I'm coming from, but also doesn't seem threatening to you?
Yeah. I think that's for sure a good point. Because you have to say, like, hey, your tone makes me, like, even if you come with like, hey, your tone makes me, I have to fight through what you're saying by thinking about, hey, you're not my mom when you speak this. I don't want to have that. I want to think about exactly what you're saying at the same time. So how can we practice? So maybe give a little background of why we want to do this. and then also be like, hey, like, how can I check your tone in a way that you'll see? Because we don't always have the capacity to understand how we're speaking. So what's a way for me to say, hey, your tone is out of pocket? And that, I think, in a calm setting, you can say exactly what you want to say in a not, that's super direct. And then come to an agreement, like, what's the phrase that I can say that your tone is out of pocket without, you know, it blowing up in that situation? And what way would trigger you? Like, what shouldn't I say? Right. So that way you can know that for sure. But don't use that as ammo either.
Right.
You know what I mean? When you're at a vulnerable place and she's like, man, please don't ever say, shut your mouth. Right. And then now in the heat of the moment, you're like, yeah, well, shut your mouth. Right. Like, that's not building your marriage at all. So we have to, as spouses, really, really nurture and treasure the vulnerable spaces that our wife or that our spouse gives us. So vice versa, like, we want her to treasure those spaces for us, and we need to treasure those spaces. Yeah.
Paul, you said something really, really important that I don't know that I have ever really considered. And that's the clutter that we have around these conversations, right? And I think not knowing that there are so many things in the way of you having an, I'll say, for the lack of a better term, efficient conversation, right? And that lack of efficiency is really just like I already have an ADHD brain, right? So for me to be triggered by all of these like aspects, right? So tone, specific words, feelings, right? Like, how am I ever going to get to the meat of what we're trying to talk about when my mind's going like, did you just say that? What? And then then I got, kids coming over here like, what's going on with y'all, right? Or whatever the case may be. How I already struggle to have these conversations, but then now we're adding all of this mental clutter to the mix that doesn't even really allow me to focus on what we're talking about. And then don't let it be something that's important to me. I'm gone now. Like, I'm just deep diving on why this is important, what I need to say in response to what you said 10 minutes ago. Like, you're still talking. I heard nothing.
Listen, that is the realest thing.
Man.
I think that's why it's so important to practice. I was watching a clip came across, and I know, we're basketball heads, but a clip came across with Gilbert Arenas was talking about Kobe and how Kobe's different, right? And he was like, man, we're playing LA. I'd come to the gym about 3:00. Kobe's already there working out, he said. But what he's doing is he's taking one dribble pull. He's doing 500 one dribble pull-ups the same way, but he's going hard, like exactly how the hardest defender in the league is going to defend her. That's how he's having whoever's defending him work out. And in that moment, it's just him in the gym, but he's going exactly like he would in the game, but it's not a game situation, right? So his body's getting used to what's happening, getting fouled, all that stuff, but it's still the same move, one dribble pull up, right? So that hits me like even in the non-important conversations, we need to address them like they are the important conversations, so that when we come to those important conversations, we already have the tools, we already have the practice, we already have the communication skills to get through those strong conversations. And I think that's why we need to stop putting those things in our box, right? Because that's hindering us from the quote unquote important conversations. But if you think about it, they're all important. One of those things I'm trying to teach Bella is like, you become great in the moments when no one's watching. You become great in the practice moments. Yeah, you want to be on stage on Sundays, or when you write your song, you want people to watch your video. But like, how did you get to where your voice works? How did you get to be able to play the piano? That's when no one's watching and you're grinding away at the piano, right? That's how did you hit that shot, right? That's because you're putting up shots in the gym when no one's watching, when you don't want to be there. That's where the greatness comes. So if we take that in marriage, like when do we able to like really crush our conversations in the heated moments? It's when we take those small moments that seem not as important and we have those conversations so we can move forward.
Drop the mic.
Yeah, that was nice, man. That's real.
Yeah.
Practice. Some of it's like practice.
Not the
We talking
game.
about practice.
Not the game. Not the game. We talking about practice. And I think we don't see that as marriage because I think we see that everything is the game in our marriage.
Mm-hmm.
But those, I mean, it's practicing. It's almost like, being a doctor or a lawyer. Like you practice law and you practice medicine. So even it's in the heated courtroom, like that's how you cut your teeth as a new lawyer, right? Like if they just throw you to the wolves, like, hey, you're in court today, like you got to figure it out. I mean, it's a real situation, but it's still practicing what works and what doesn't.
Right.
So it's, I don't know. I got a lot of thoughts, so I'm gonna stop talking.
Or we're feeling like this will just automatically happen over time should we survive.
That part.
Yeah.
Right. All this. Oh man, they've been married for 40 years. That's how they learn to communicate the way they do. It's just
because it took 40 years for them to get there.
Like, no, they didn't practice in year 2.
Right. They just waited till 40 and like, yeah, we understand each other now.
Yeah, no, they've been practicing and their skills have improved over 40 years.
Right.
Which is why we need to really lean into people that have been married that long. Because they'll tell you. I mean, we all know this. Like, if we link up with someone that has more experience with us and show them a real interest and that we're, wanting to learn and that we respect them, man, they will open the playbook for us. Because that's an innate survival skill of being a human, right? We want the next generation to do well. And we kind of want to learn, teach them from our mistakes because we don't want them to go down that road. So it's just link up with people that have been married longer than you. So you can learn from what they did, what they didn't do, and really just come from a genuine place. You can unlock the keys.
Yeah, I feel like this is right up there with building wealth.
Yeah.
Like similar type of topics where it's like if you genuinely ask and show you're willing to learn, like I'll tell you, but I'm not just going to waste my time and spill my guts about everything I've learned over the years when like you're just acting like some knucklehead.
Yeah. Sometimes I remember I used to go to some, I've always thought once I got married, I need to go to somebody that's successful in it. It makes no sense to go to somebody that's not, But I used to get upset when I used to go to them. And here's why. I'll be honest with you. Because I will say something, I'll bring something up, and they will say something so simple. And it's like, what do you mean just? And then, just do this or just love on her through it. Well, I'm talking about what she doesn't do to me. You got to just love her either way, no matter what. Just kept it simple. And I'm like, I ain't doing that. I need somebody to tell me how I can get back at her. You know what I'm saying? But the older and older I got, in my marriage, some things are just that simple. But for some reason, we don't want it to be simple because it took a lot for us to even get to where we're at in a place of frustration. So we think it's going to take a lot to get out of it. When sometimes it's not the case. It could be just a simple, I didn't know this at the time, but she felt some type of way when I came home and I didn't hug her first. Or I didn't have I would just say, hey, drop my bag down and start doing stuff. And there was no connection there. So it could be, and that was triggering for her. So now that just set the whole mood for the house, the whole time since I've been home. But it could be this like the most simplest thing that it could be so profound that the elderly marriages can give you. So just receive that. If it's simple and they've been doing it, take it. You might be upset like me because you want more, but sometimes more is not needed.
Yeah, I think a lot of times the older people, because they've done it so long, they say you just do this, and you're like, man, it can't be that simple. But in essence, they're saying just sacrifice.
Yeah,
that's basically, if you think about what, like you said, as I'm like going through that and talking about people giving me advice, it's really like, if you want to make this work, you got to sacrifice.
Yeah,
and they're using other words, but it comes down to let it go, sacrifice for your wife. And it's just like, man, that is marriage. But you don't want to hear that.
You don't want to hear that. I was like, that's what you did at my age? That's what you did? Like, you go hard, you know what I mean?
And that's funny because it's like maybe they didn't, but they've learned it right now. So they're like, listen, I didn't sacrifice. So I'm telling you right now, if you want to get past this, go ahead and lay that down.
Right.
Have a conversation, but make sure you're laying that down. Don't hold on to it.
Yeah, that's real.
I know we got to wrap up. It's reminding me of the Karate Kid. Basically what you just said, right? It's the simple movements, wax on, wax off. You don't think it has to be this huge, complicated thing. Like, teach me karate, right? Nah, wax the car, wax on, wax off.
Yeah, that's real.
You're learning the moves.
Not even realize it.
Yeah.
That was good.
Well,
man, y'all got anything else to add?
Nah, man. I'm gonna start practicing, bro. I'm gonna start getting in the gym. I'm gonna start practicing for real.
Start with the little weights.
Yeah. I ain't pulling no muscles, bro. I ain't pulling no muscles.
That's it, man. It's just go hard. You got to go like it's the real thing every time. So when you're practicing, don't negate the small things. And just be like, hey, stop putting stuff in our bag. We don't need to have a big, huge box filled with stuff. It needs to be as empty as possible. So that's all I say.
I learned a lot. Appreciate y'all.
I feel like I got a lot off my chest.
Yeah, I felt that.
That's good.
I felt that.
But now the key is to also bring it back and be like, hey, this is what I learned today. This is how I'm feeling. Let's have a conversation about it.
Receive, release. Yeah.
That's it. Man, so if you got anything from this episode, please share it. If you think someone can benefit, make sure you share it. Let them know that we have this conversation. And if you'd like, please subscribe so you can just be up to date every time we drop something new, a new episode, new content. If you've gotten value from this yet, just you can even let us know. You can rate and review on anywhere you receive this podcast. We appreciate that. But yeah, Search Your Marriage is Tougher. If you'd like to hit us in the DMs on any social media platform, or like I said, go to the contact form at marriageistougher.com and drop us a line there. But yeah, we're going to wrap up now. So until next time, we'll see you later.
Yeah. Oh, matter of fact, let's let Nate drop his socials. Where can they find you?
Oh, they can find me at concise2barber.com. Concise the Barber is also my YouTube channel and also my Instagram name as well. So that's where you guys can check me out.
All right, bet we'll make sure to put those in the show notes.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all, man.
Yeah, appreciate.
I needed this. Didn't even know it. I needed it.
Hey, thanks for being here, man. We appreciate that too.
Yeah.
All right,
y'all. Peace.